lot of regulation coming into the industry, and I think that's going to take a lot of people out. But whenever there's stuff like that comes in, there's only a few operators that are going to figure it out, and I think the market share becomes theirs when that stuff happens.
Most people don't know much about it. Most people don't have a clue how to get started in it. And, it's one of those things. As an investor, you can definitely meet with operators that want to come and do that. I help a lot of people rent homes.
My message to anybody listening to this would be hire a coach sooner than you get yourself out of this mindset. Find somebody, vet them out, because there's a lot of BS guys out there. But hire that coach and don't be afraid to spend that money, because all you're doing is investing in yourself, and it's going to catapult your results.
Now's the best time to buy. You can't wait for 3% interest rates again, because Joe said it. I don't think in my life I'm going to see those rates again.
Welcome everyone to today's mastermind. This is our Real Estate Masters Inner Circle Mastermind panel. We have hand selected 2 experienced real estate investors that are going to pull back the curtain on their businesses. We are going to discuss the changing of the markets, how they run their operation, and how they stay competitive in this competitive market. Tony got this idea. We've been doing one-on-one podcasts. They've been doing really great, but we figured if we get multiple perspectives in one place to kind of bounce off of, I thought it would be really cool. Just opens a lot of different conversation, and we're really excited to bring this to you. Tony is out of town and wasn't feeling well, so he wasn't able to join. So I will be running our panel for the day. If you're on Zoom with us live, welcome. You have the opportunity to ask questions and participate if you would like. If you are watching on replay and you want to be a part of some of the future conversations, you can email Tony at prohomebuyer.com, and Grace, his assistant, will talk to you about how you can get access. These calls are for our 10X TV clients, but we are starting to open up access to people outside of just our community. Panelists, are you guys ready to get started?
Ready when you are.
Awesome. First, I'll just have you guys do a quick intro, just who you are, where you invest, your specialty, whether it's wholesale, fix and flip, or whatever your main thing is in the business. And then one fun fact, feel free to brag about yourself. Joseph, you want to go first?
Yeah, although I'm not really one to brag, so I'm going to probably struggle with that one right out of the gate. We run a little wholesaling shop up in Portland, Oregon. Our market is basically 2 to 3 hour radius of Portland, covers Washington and Oregon states. We turn around just over 200 deals a year. Last year, we wholesale over $8.2 million worth of revenue. Grew 47.3% from the previous year. Our deal growth was 56.6% of that. We maintain an average deal margin of around 40 grand every wholesale deal. I also do probably about 30 to 40 fix and flips a year. I buy from the same from my wholesale company, but I operate that on the side. I don't intertwine the two. Fun fact about me, I've been doing this for a little over 20 years, and I feel like I'm just now starting to come into it. So always improving. There's always something to learn. I'm happy to give whatever I can to contribute and help you guys. So
Awesome. I love it. Thanks for being here today, Jim.
I am Jim Boad. Now what I do is I develop property and I turn them into sober living homes. And I also teach people how to start and scale sober living homes. And a fun fact about me is I have worked with my wife side by side for almost 25 years now. So
that definitely can be a tricky thing to do. So that's
we spend a lot of time together.
well, cool. The first thing I want to get into is just kind of how you're seeing the market currently. I know 2025 was very interesting. How did you see the market? How did you shift in last year's market, Joe? Specifically, you on this, I know you did really well last year where a lot of people struggled. So we'll kind of go with Joe first and then go to Jim. But what was your strategy last year? And then what's your new strategy going into this year?
Well, I was fortunate enough. I've been in this long enough. For me, this is what most people are seeing is what I would consider a normal market now, right? Like we came out of some crazy times with those low interest rates. Probably never see that again. But I survived through the '06 to the '09 debacle. We were buying at the courthouse steps back then. Businesses changed over the years, right? So as we progress to where we're at now, we're just laser focused on accountability. Like our lead, we're paying attention to every one of our leads twice a day. Like we've got the sales staff just honed in on, super accountable for everything that they do, all their actions. And that's really what's kept us going the last couple of years. Like I have I don't know if I'm going to share it or not, but from 2023 to 2025, like we've doubled our deal flow and we're looking to still continue that growth in 2026. Not doing any more marketing, just getting better at what it is we're doing. We're just laser focused on that right now.
That's awesome. When it comes to the, lead to call, do you know kind of an average of what you're seeing right now as far as how long it's taken for your team to answer?
You're talking about just the quick answer rates?
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're not getting to them in under 1 minute, then they're kind of on the radar. So
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Jim, what about you? What was kind of your strategy last year and then your strategy going into the new year?
Yeah, going into this new year, I'm doing all new construction. So I've got a bunch of new lots that I just finished subbing off, and going to be building a lot more than renovating. Just because the specific things that I want to do to my homes to make them function the way that I want as a sober living home, not specifically a home for sale. I love these markets. I love when the markets turn because I feel like the professionals really get to thrive in those markets. Like when the market crashed in, '07, '08, we grew by leaps and bounds because we started taking on short sales. We started taking on REOs. I started a whole nother company that all I did was the renovation work for REOs and lock changes. I made more money changing locks than I made selling real estate that year. So I love when we go into a down market. Those up markets, you get everybody who becomes a realtor, and it's shooting fish in a barrel. So it takes away from the people that are really here and have great models and systems because it's just such an abundant market. So I'm happy with where the market is.
Yeah. When it comes to the next 12 months, what would you say you're most optimistic about? And on the flip side of that, what do you think concerns you the most? Joe, start with you.
for us, the thing we're most focused on is just honing in the processes and procedures. It just really comes down to efficiency. Our average leads to contract is we're down to 8.1, and we're trying to move that down to 6.1. And if we just do that and we don't advertise more, we don't do anything different, that's the difference of about $2.5 million in revenue for us over the course of the year. And so it's just really honing that stuff in and just really becoming that specialist in what we do.
Awesome. Jim?
For me, it's really about building those relationships because the way that we fill our sober living homes are by people that work in the inpatient drug clinics. So really, it's us just touching base with them, expanding our reach, and getting a hold of even more and more of them. That's the biggest thing that changes for us because I've already got all the land and now I've just got to finish the building, but it's keeping those beds full. So just marketing, marketing, marketing. So
Yeah. You guys, if you have any questions for Jim or Joe, feel free to drop them in the chat here. I'll be, looking through them and asking them. Jim, one for you specifically, because I know we talked, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and it was super intriguing, like what you're doing. When it comes to, your switch from more being on the, buy and sell side to now switching over to the sober living side, for anyone in this space that does buy and hold and have some rentals, how much better have you noticed the sober living space is? Not just from a, money standpoint, but, just in general, how much better have you seen that be than just regular, like renting it to a family?
it's been night and day for me because COVID changed my whole world with my rentals because that was the whole thing. It was the Burr model. I was buying them, I was renovating them, and then I was refinancing them and keeping them. And once I switched to this model, it's been pretty insane. We've got a whiteboard full with people in waiting lists to get into our homes. So like my turns are totally different. I'm never 100% vacant. So because our model, we run two people per bedroom. So, my average home is 4 to 5 bedrooms right now. So we're getting 8 to 10 people per home. And if I ever have people not in there, it's for a week and it's 1 to 2 people, and then it's refilled right away. So the cash flow is insane. The occupancy rates are so much higher, and I get to do so much more for my community doing what I do now. I love it.
When it comes to rent, like if someone has rentals long term and they're, maybe bringing in 100, 200, $500 a month, Would you recommend that? Like, is it something that you think they could do on a part-time while still like someone like Joe, where he's, wholesaling hundreds of deals? Like, is it that time consuming for someone that wouldn't be doing it full time, or what do you think?
No, it's definitely not full-time work. We run multiple homes, and we had 14 actively running at one point, and at the most it was 15 to 20 hours per week for the person who was running it. And there's really two models on how to run this. It's self-run, of course, or it's build a team. And if you're good at building teams, these are amazing to build teams out for. So
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Joe, coming back to you, what is your top marketing channel for 2025? What was your top marketing channel? And going into 2026, what would you is there any new marketing that you're looking to do? Anything that outperformed something crazy?
Well, let's classify what you mean by top marketing channel. Are we talking like the lowest cost per deal, the highest ROI, or the gross revenue? What do you want? What do you want?
I mean, at the end of the day, gross revenue is really I mean, if it's making the most money, I guess maybe one of each.
Sure. We only do inbound marketing. So we don't do any telemarketing. We don't do any text messaging anymore. We dropped that 2.5 years ago. Our direct mail, we did 2.4 in gross on that, and our cost per deal on that was 11.6 a deal. Pay per click, we got 2 million bucks in the door off of that. That was 7,100 bucks a deal. TV, we did 1.3 in revenue off of that, and it was a $12,300 per deal. And then we did 1.7 in SEO, which in my opinion, you don't have a great way to measure the SEO. So we attribute that to both pay per click and TV. But if we classify just the ones that came through, considering it SEO, that added another 1.7 million to the bottom line. And that was probably your best, but again, you can't attribute it towards one or the other. So that was 580 bucks for a deal for that added. And they all kind of play off each other, right? If you're running TV, it's going to elevate your pay per click game.
For someone that's doing TV and they aren't utilizing PPC, how big do you think that is? And when it comes to PPC, is there anything that you're doing specifically that plays off the TV that's doing really well?
Not really. I mean, TV is going to elevate all that stuff, right? With the TV element, you have instant credibility with these homeowners. On our TV, in our area, I actually did the TV commercials with my wife, and I don't rarely go on appointments anymore, but every time I do, it's kind of hilarious because it's like they're starstruck when you show up, right? Like it was the weirdest thing ever for me because I didn't realize it. I was out in Portland training. I live in Arizona, but my operations up in Oregon, and so I fly up there in the summers, and I just was spending some time with some of the sales guys, and I was showing up there. It was funny to see these people starstruck, and I was just like, I didn't get it at first until like the fourth one. So it definitely elevates you. It will elevate every marketing channel across the board.
Jim, when it comes to the sober living, I know that you and I talked the other day about marketing. It's different because you're not marketing to the actual people, and you're not necessarily buying properties as much anymore as building them. But when it comes to someone maybe looking to start, let's say they have a couple rentals, they want to try it out for one, what's the best ways to get into it? And what's the best ways to market it to where you always have people in those beds?
absolutely. And that's really just Googling in your area, inpatient drug clinics near me, and getting on that phone, getting good email addresses. And I like to do pop by still as well. So we find that, and like I said, we keep expanding and expanding. I go to about 3+ hours away from where I live and market as well, and I get people that come to us from that far away. So, and it's really just figuring out who that person is you need to talk to that's in charge of housing in any of these different facilities because they all have different names. So it's not just one person to ask for in a position, but just who's in charge of helping people with your housing. And once you get a hold of the right people and keep touching them, they load you up.
What would you guys say is the biggest bottleneck or challenge that you're working through right now in the business? And how are you approaching it? Joe, we'll have you go first.
I would say we're in a pretty talent challenged area in Portland. It's definitely anti-employer. So finding talent has always been difficult up there. And then when you find that talent, making sure it's a culture fit. So we have a pretty heavy vetting process when it comes to the hiring. We're super slow to hire for that purpose. We got to get them bought into the culture, what we're doing there, and show them the opportunity. And then we really focus on, once you get past the 400 applicants to find the one or two potentials, you really got to start diving into that level to make sure that they are that culture fit. Because the wrong hire is going to cost you months and months and a bunch of dollars, whether it's your leads that they're handling wrong or losing contracts because they can't recognize it or they don't learn quick enough. So you really got to hone that in too once you start building a team.
When it comes to hiring, I know culture's huge. Would you say culture is almost more important than resumes or really anything else in some cases?
Yeah, they're not a culture fit. Our culture is so strong, it's going to weed them out real quick. So, I mean, we would actually prefer people coming to us with no experience over experience. Now we don't have to break bad habits or, bad mindsets, stuff like that.
Want to get motivated sellers that nobody knows about? Introducing 10x TV. If you want to create credibility in your market, find deals that nobody else knows about, and crush your competition, you need to check into TV commercials. It is the new buzz in the real estate investing industry since we introduced it several years ago. I've been using TV commercials myself for the last 12 years and it's absolutely crushed it. So if you want to learn how to get on TV and to do something that little to no people are doing right now, go to claimmymarket.com. Again, that's claimmymarket.com. We usually only work with 2 investors per market, so if you're interested, reach out to us and book a call to see if you can claim your market before anybody else does. Now back to the show.
When you're looking for someone besides culture fit, I know a lot of investors might be, I don't know if scared's the right word, but scared they're going to hire the wrong person. Culture obviously helps make that happen less, but when it comes to being coachable or like what are some other traits that you really look for, and how do you try and weed that out in the hiring process and interview process? Because I know a lot of people that are really good at interviews and then they go in and they suck. So what are some of the things that you do to weed people out in the interview process?
Well, our interview process is pretty simple. If you want to apply for a position, we make you take a PI test so we know that we're putting the right butt in the right seat. We start with that. And then if you can pass that and follow instructions, pretty simple. You can get on a 20-minute interview with our CEO who does the hiring. What she does is she's just going to basically get on and ask you like 5 questions, right? We're going to figure out what your motivation is in life. So we're going to ask you simple questions like, tell me 3 people who inspire you. You got to personally know them, and tell me the specific traits that they inspire you with, right? And so people will basically start describing people that they like, and really what they're doing with that first question is they're describing themselves, but they don't realize it, right? It's kind of they're super unique questions the way we ask them, and it always catches them off guard because they're there for an interview, but you're asking them these type of weird questions and they're not used to it. The second set of questions is, now we flip it. If I was talking to somebody else, and I'm having this conversation with them, what would they tell me about you that you inspired them with, right? And so what that question does is it challenges them to look and reflect on themselves. And out of that, we're able to see if they're a giver or a taker. And what I mean by that is, if they're a giver, they're going to really struggle with finding somebody that they think they've motivated, right? Or gave credit to. If they're a taker, you're gonna hear stuff like, well, my boss that I used to work for over here, I did this for him and he listened to me, type of scenario. And those are really the 2 determining factors. The first one, it divines and figures out what type of what their diehard live and dies are, right? Mine's drive, integrity, and loyalty. And if we don't get somebody out of that in the first line of questioning, then they're probably not going to fit in the culture real well, right? Because they're not going to work as hard as I do, and they're not going to keep up with the rest of the staff who's all aligned like that. Going to the third question, we ask them what their goals are. We ask them for a 12-month goal from today, personal, professional, and income. The personal goal is, what do they want to do? A lot of times you'll hear getting in shape or, getting married or buying a house, stuff like that. Great to have goals. Businesses that usually like they want to find a place that they can call home for a while, right? Or a career. And then the last aspect of that is what's the income goal? We utilize that to gauge, are they within our realm of the salary that we're trying to hire them at, right? And see, are they way out of it or not? Because we just can't ask what can you make on interviews, right? So you got to kind of trick them into saying that. And then the last question we ask them is if money was no object, what would you do for work? And that's really to find out where their passion lies.
Mm.
And so at the end of that, what we're looking for is just really the first two questions, and the other questions kind of allocate and show us what they're about. But really, that first question shows if their core values fit with ours, and then we can move them to that next step of a panel interview.
I love it. I love it. Jim, what about you? Bottlenecks, challenges. What are you working through right now?
I'm not very far from the Portland area. I'm right outside of Olympia, and we kind of deal with the same people issues. That the talent pool's a little different, um, but so kind of the same things. I mean, we run off a lot of the same models. Our culture is really really important, and attitude and the way people deal with adversity is way more important to me than their skill or knowledge, because everything we do is pretty repetitive and pretty systematized. So really them being able to deal with adversity and, when somebody relapses or in one of our facilities, or they just have to deal with mental health issues or things like that with someone, that's really what separates them from somebody who just doesn't fit our culture. So
Right. Well, how long do you think is a healthy interview process from, start to hire or offer accepted? Well, what do you think's a healthy term for that? And I guess it could be dependent on the person, but what do you think, an average timeline looks like for you? Joe, you first?
So we kind of have ads running all the time for the positions that we want to hire for. So they apply, and if they're a fit in the PI, then we'll move them to the next step, right? So that's all automated. The next step is getting them on that 20-minute Zoom interview. We do it 15 to 20 minutes, get to know them, ask them those questions, and then we usually cycle back if we're interested again. We'll put them in front of a panel. They'll come usually into our office hour-ish for that interview. We have 3 to 5 people in a panel that are going to kind of drill them. They're going to go over more of the traditional stuff and their resume and why they're leaving, why they're looking for work elsewhere. And then sometimes, depending on the level of the hire, we might have them back for 2 or 3 more interviews at about an hour apiece to really get to know them. That's about the extent of what we do from a hiring standpoint.
Jim, what about you?
mine's polar opposite. Um, I do a few moments on a phone call, and then I bring people in for working interviews. All I really do is mainly working interviews, get them there, get them into situations, get them rolling around with me, and just see how they act, how they do, and then we never really offer a position for a couple of weeks. We just kind of bring them in for those working interviews and work with them for a while and just see if it's a good fit. And that just works the best for me because we're pretty intimate. So you're dealing with people on a regular basis. So that's how I run them.
Well, what's a recent win or breakthrough that shifted your mindset or momentum so far this year? Joe, you first?
Oh man, it's always for me. It's always the same thing. I grew up in a not a wealthy family, so we always had to overcome the mindset of the fear versus faith mindset, and I preach it to the staff. I literally just got off a meeting an hour ago doing the same talk with them, right? But I catch myself going back to that a lot, and so that's constantly at the forefront for me. Um, I hate paying taxes, right? I run my business a little bit different than a lot of people. I do a good portion of deals in my Roth IRA that are wholesale deals because of that. And I hate paying taxes with the leftovers at the end of the year. So I like to spend and prepay for marketing expenses so I don't have to do that. And so, it's just making sure that I'm planning far enough in advance where I'm not going to pay the penalties of last minute planning and that aspect of it. Nobody likes paying 60% of what they make, right? And so we're in that tax bracket, unfortunately. And so, we drain the accounts every December, prepaying for marketing, but that gives us a strategic advantage coming February, March, and April because we were just loaded with leads and deals coming in the door. So it's kind of like a cyclical scenario that we've been doing for like the last 5 years.
Awesome. Jim?
Yeah, and I don't think any of us love the tax part of it. So totally agree with that. The majority of my money comes through refinancing. So I build the homes, or when I was renovated them, and then refinance them. So I just get loans and big chunks of cash, as opposed to when I was flipping and got big piles of cash that I had lots and lots of taxes on. And then, really the biggest thing that's changed everything this year was my wife coming into this side of the business and taking over the structure of it, because I'm horrible at structure. My wife really keeps me on track with that, and that is where she shines. So.
I love it. I love it. Is there any, systems or tools or processes that have made the biggest impact this year? I mean, I guess for you, Jim, it might have been, bringing your wife over to this side. We just switched over to Left Main from Resimply. Loved Resimply. Just certain things that we feel like will, be a little bit more advanced from Left Main. So that's one thing that are doing different this year. And so far I've seen pretty good results from it. Anything system wise or process wise or tools that you guys are implementing into the new year? Joe?
Again, we're pretty stuck in the tech stack that we have right now. We've been on Salesforce for 4 years now. I probably got $500,000 dumped into the development of it. Welcome to the never-ending pit, Noah. You're going to constantly be wanting to fix it and change it and tweak it, and all of a sudden something will break. Nothing but great stuff about Stephanie's platform, but we just outgrew it. So our tech stack's really been the same. We're just laser focused. We have a system that works. The best system I think we've created is I revamped our sales process for both our in-person. So we have in-person closers, which a lot of people would call those lead managers, and then we have our outside person closers. And I've given them, and most of these guys are kids coming into the business, 20 to 30-year-olds. They don't have a lot of life experience. They don't have a lot of life skills because they didn't teach them, this generation, they didn't teach them, right? And so they got a long way to go. And so I had to come up with a system where they can actually go out and negotiate without having the negotiation skill set. And so we've revamped the process where we have like a 12 or a 13 step now. And if they're just following that process and they know the talk tracks, not necessarily following the script, but they can follow in the talk tracks, they're pretty successful. Our inside guy, the lowest one, was with us for 4 months or 6 months. He was hired in April. We put him on the floor in June. He made 80 grand this year, and our top guy inside rep made 250 grand. And so these are kids, right? Like some of these guys, this is their first job out of college, and they're crushing it. And our outside closers, they're making around 300 grand a year running appointments. And so we really separated the role in that sales process revamp. But that accountability is ultimately what you have to do if you want to make sure that your leads are going the right way and they're treating it the right way. You as an owner or operator have to get in there and analyze that constantly. And it's got to be at the forefront of their mindset every single day.
Yeah. Jim, what about you?
Yeah. Our database is pretty awesome. It's very specific to ours. It's called Sobriety Hub. Nothing we created, but it came out the middle of last year, and it was a game changer because we have lots of different moving parts. We have multiple people per bedroom. So like this allows us to track it right down to that, each person in each room. We can collect money through that system and everything. So it's been a game changer for us.
Awesome. Awesome. What do you think is the biggest opportunity opening that you see in real estate right now that other investors might be overlooking?
We just have a lot of regulation coming into the industry, and I think that's going to take a lot of people out. But whenever there's stuff like that comes in, there's only a few operators that are going to figure it out, and I think the market share becomes theirs when that stuff happens. Washington's famous for it. They just implemented a rule. I think I was talking to you about it, Noah, where you now have to have a realtor involved in any type of private sale, or the seller can back out of the contract, because if you don't, it's a basically like preying on the elderly law that it violates. And you don't want nothing to do with that, because it's like it's 3 times damages, it's attorney's fees provisions. Like they created it to where they're trying to take out the individual guy like us to do these transactions without them.
Mm,
You know, if you figure out if you figure out the way around it and be that first guy to figure out the loophole, like you now have something that nobody else does.
mm. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Jim, what about you? Any big opportunities that you think investors are overlooking?
Sober living as a whole, it's just it. Most people don't know much about it. Most people don't have a clue how to get started in it. And it's one of those things. As an investor, you can definitely meet with operators that want to come and do that. I help a lot of people rent homes, and some of the best relationships I get together is when I get an investor who owns multiple homes or is willing to buy multiple homes, and an operator who's passionate about the mission. Because if you're not passionate about the mission, like anything, it's kind of it's not going to do the same as it would if you're really into it. If you're just coming in this to try to 10x your income, you're going to do it, but you're probably not going to run the homes the same way that an operator who really their mission is sobriety and getting people back into the society, getting them jobs, getting them different things. So um, just all around sober living.
When it comes to sober living, because I obviously like our conversation was great, and I honestly asked you to be on here because I think it's something that most of our investors could utilize, especially the ones that have doors already that are, only profiting 100, 200, $300 per month. For someone getting into that space, I know you mentioned it's pretty easy, but you had mentioned like there's no real like certifications, like there's no real loopholes to jump through besides if you want government funding, which isn't too hard. But we'll kind of explain the process of like if someone has a house, obviously you got to get rid of who's in there now, but how easy would it be for someone to transition just a regular family, single family home into it, and how long would that take, you think?
It's really easy to transition through. And I mean, you can do it, you could transition through in days realistically. But most people it's anywhere between 30 and 60 just because you've got to furnish the home, but once again, you're not furnishing it to the level of like an Airbnb where you're trying to go uber luxe. You're making it just a comfortable home. You're getting a Goodwill table and chairs. You're getting a used couch, which you can probably get donated most of the time if you are willing to throw out some Facebook posts. You're putting dollar store dishes and silverware in there. It's stuff that's going to get used heavily and you're going to turn it over. And then really getting people into the homes. Once you start making those calls and making those contacts, you'll start daily getting phone calls of people ready and wanting to come into these homes. So,
And just to give people an idea that are listening, like, obviously the return is great. What's an average amount that you're charging people for a bed? Like when it comes to a single family home, if you're charging them, 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 in rent, like what's each bed go for?
yes. So in my area, I get 850 a bed. And again, I put two per room. And I really like 5+ bedroom homes. They're my favorites. Plus the math's really easy on those. I have a 5 bedroom home with 2 people per room, 850 a month. I'm getting $8,500 a month in cash flow off of that single family home. That was maxing me out at 2,700 bucks a month. This is what I would be able to bring in off of that, which sometimes was barely covering the mortgage. So
Jim, I'm gonna hit you up after this meeting for coaching, man, because I'm turning deals down I could be taking subject to. I need some coaching. So you've sold me already, buddy.
deal.
This is the main reason is stuff like this. But when it comes to, I feel like there's so many people that could be getting more for their single family home. And it just sounds too good to be true, honestly. It just sounds so easy, especially for someone like Joe, who's really good at building teams that could build a team for this. I mean, like, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you wouldn't really need a big team to have a section of the business be this. Like, yeah, what would be an average team size for someone? Let's say you had even just 10 homes, let's say an average of a 4 bed. Like what size team do you think you'd have to operate that pretty smoothly?
One person could really comfortably run up to 20 homes. It wouldn't it's not too challenging. And then if you break it up and you have two people, because kind of depends on the types of homes you run. If like we mainly run men's homes, so my wife does most of the back end stuff, and then we have a guy who's very part-time, but he goes in and he does drug testing and he kicks people out when we have to kick them out, and he does our enforcing, if you will. And then so you don't need to scale these out with dozens and dozens of people. I mean, really, you're gonna max out on how many homes you can get before you're gonna max out on what you the amount of people that you need. Um,
And you said a lot. I mean, some of your like students that are learning about this, like they straight up just rent homes instead of buying them. Like it still works to sublease it in a way. It's kind of, I mean, how often are like homeowners okay with that versus if they're like, yo, no, I'm not, you know.
initially, almost no one's okay with it until they understand. Once they because these homes kind of can get bad reputations. Like I said, if you're coming in this just purely to make it a cash grab and you're not going to run these homes well, you're going to allow people to still do drugs and drink in these homes, they're going to be horrible homes. Your neighbors are going to hate you. All the bad things that people are afraid of will happen. When these are well-run homes, we have curfews, we have chore lists. These people they're mowing the lawn, they're rebuilding their lives. And we take ours to a little bit of a higher level. We have a nonprofit. We are getting ready to do a pretty big charity event. I just sent two guys to Flagger School, so that way they're state certified now, so they can go out and get actually really good paying jobs. We're sending people to welding school. I have a restaurant that I have in town. 80% of my staff lives in my homes. I have a small construction company. I hire guys on to do construction. I mean, you build this labor pool for yourself too. So it's just this kind of you keep giving and winning and giving and winning and giving and winning. It is an amazing thing when you get it up. And then if you go to the cash flow aspect of it, it really blows your mind. So
Yeah, and just even going back to Joe's point of, some of the deals that might not have penciled for a, just regular rental, turning it into something like this. I mean, there's so many more deals that you could be taking advantage of. It's crazy.
absolutely.
It's
And
just
as
another tool in the toolbox there that you just don't, get to pull out and use that your competition doesn't.
absolutely.
Yeah. When it comes to the market, a hypothetical question, if the market dropped 10 to 20% tomorrow, how would you change your strategy from now, and what would your strategy be?
I can jump into that one. For me, it's not as big of a deal for me because I'm not concerned on the exit, and my cash flow can tend to be so high. Where it would really change is if somehow the rental market shifted so much to where now, uh, well, that doesn't even affect me because I own my homes. So um, I'm a little bulletproof in that regard with what I do.
We saw something similar to that in 2022 when the rates jumped up, right? They went from the stupid 2%ers to the 4 to 5s, and it stalled a lot. And we saw that trend coming because we follow all the people that are putting out what stuff's going to do. We were prepping for it 6 months before it happened, and I kept telling the staff, like, hold firm on your numbers. The market's going to shift. These sellers are just going to take them a year to catch up. Like we lost some deal volume because of that, but from a wholesaling shop that also does fix and flip. So because we source inventory for both my businesses, um, we just adjust our buy price down, and then you're going to get less deal volume when that market's transitioning. But when it starts catching up, and now the narrative's fitting where you're at in that market cycle, that's when you're able to kind of make up for all that lost time. You got to be cognitive when when that's happening, right? That's the key there, because you can time it right, it's going to be great. But if you time it wrong and you're holding a lot of fix and flip inventory and you're relying on those margins in that market to stay up here and it drops 10%, now you're getting crushed.
Yeah, for sure. What's one piece of advice that each of you would give to an investor who feels stuck, maybe overwhelmed, or unsure of what direction to take in this market? What's something you would give them?
I'll jump in. I,
Yeah, go for it.
I'm an imperfect action guy. I will always tell people to take some sort of action over waiting. It's like trying to time the market. I'm going to buy when the market drops. You already missed it. I'm going to buy when the market peaks or sell when the market peaks. You already missed it. The best time to buy is always now. And this whole interest rate thing that we went through, and people are mortified by a 7% interest rate. My first home that I bought was at almost 9%, and it was a great rate at the time. People bought condos in the 80s at 18, 19, 20% interest rates. I mean, it's just now's the best time to buy. You can't wait for 3% interest rates again because Joe said it. I don't think in my life I'm going to see those rates again. So
Mm-mm. Yeah, and my only piece of advice is, I'm one of those guys that I'm about to turn 52. I know I look 22, but I'm about to turn 52, right? And I've learned a lot of life lessons, but I've always looked at myself as a guy that learns very slow. So I've been in this business over 25 years, and I feel like I'm learning lessons now that I should have picked up when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, right? And what for me, I didn't hire my first coach until I was in my mid to late 30s, and it was Sean Terry. I'm a visual learner, and I just what his messaging was put out. I hired him. I paid him 50 grand. Never met the guy. Wired him money on a Friday. Never met him still. Right. I just heard one message that he put out, and that coaching changed my life. So my message to anybody listening to this would be hire a coach sooner than you and get yourself out of this mindset. Find somebody, vet them out because there's a lot of BS guys out there. But hire that coach and don't be afraid to spend that money because all you're doing is investing in yourself and it's going to catapult your results.
Yeah, 100%. I heard someone say the other day on a podcast, they were like, if you're not willing to invest in yourself, why would anyone else invest in you? Private money and anything in that matter. So I love that.
Employees,
Yeah,
right?
employees, of course, everything. Jim, what about you? I'm curious, and I think I know I asked you, Jim, but on our separate podcast, but uh, you know, everyone defines the word success differently. Everyone strives for it differently. Everyone measures it differently. How would you define the word success? How do you measure it, and how do you strive for it every day?
for me, success to me has really changed over time. It's all about my time now. That is just the biggest asset that I want, and I work harder to have more of my time than anything I do in the world right now. I do work with my wife, and it's nice because we get to be together even when we're grinding it out, and that's kind of been something that's for us that's really helped our relationship because I used to work a lot. I work a lot less now, but when I'm not working, I get to be with my wife and we get to hang out and do whatever we want, and it's a pretty amazing place to be in life. So I still see friends and family that they just grind. We'll go on a trip together and they're on their phone the whole time we're there on vacation, dealing with things where me and my wife we go out and we don't bring our phones anymore. Whenever we're done working, we set our phones down and we're just no tech time, and that has changed everything for me.
I got to echo what he said that, the success looks different in your 20s than it does your 30s and your 40s and your 50s, right? You get up to where I'm at, same with where Jim's at, you're thinking about time, nothing but time. Every day you're waking up thinking about what you're going to be able to do with your time. Unfortunately, we're in that percentile that can control what they get with their time. There's a lot of people that aren't that fortunate, that didn't make the right decisions for the last 30 years to be in that spot. But that's all I think about is the time, my kids, spending that time with them. Like I made the mistake of grinding and grinding and grinding when the kids were young, and I missed out on their early years. And you don't get that back. You don't get that back ever. So, make those decisions because that success, it might be a dollar figure now, it might be a team later. For me, it's about that time now and what I can control in my network of my company is I'm trying to bring in people and change their lives. And for me, that's a success too. Because if I can bring in and take these 20-year-old kids and get them making $500,000, teaching them how to invest, how to utilize, tax strategies to save themselves millions of dollars over the years, like I'm gonna leave a little bit of a legacy with them behind too when I go.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Another question for both of you. If you are going to completely start from scratch, the businesses go away, you get to keep all your knowledge that you've learned over the years. What would you focus on first to rebuild?
I would have probably not sold off all the properties that I wholesaled. I would have probably kept more of them before the landlord laws changed in Oregon and Washington. Life was really good, and then I would have hopefully been able to sell off a lot sooner, and probably would have moved into the private or hard money era a lot sooner than I did, and that's a lot less brain damage in my opinion.
Absolutely. Uh, for me, I would have got into the running sober living homes much sooner. I just didn't think about them, didn't really know about them either until I did, and it was like a lightning rod when I found out about it. So, and then if I just needed cash, I would wholesale if I just needed cash. But that's because I'd have the knowledge that I have. So, wholesaling definitely is a different whole different business. So.
Yeah. In this business, there's a lot of onesie twosies. There's a lot of people that do, mid, 40 to 60 deals. There's a lot of people that do 100 plus deals. What do you think's the main piece that separates top operators from everyone else in your experience?
Insane focus is the key. I recently lost $3.5 million investing in another business model 2 years ago, and it was probably the stupidest decision I ever made. And at the time, I thought I could do it, you know. But you lose focus on one thing, and you only got so much time, and you're either going to give your time to this side or you're going to give it to this side, and you can't be a master of both. Very few people can, right? I can't. I failed at it. And so just that insane focus, identify what that goal is, reverse engineer it backwards, and just nothing but, intent. Everything you do is intent on reaching that goal.
And I would agree with that focus aspect. And for me, models and systems are what change everything for me. Um, I know when I started building businesses, I didn't think enough about that. I didn't think about my exit, and I don't do anything now that I don't think about how am I going to sell this. So when I go to sell this, how am I going to just hand this to you so you can buy all of my sober living homes and be able to just run them seamlessly without me there? And that's straight models and systems. So
Yeah, you said something on our podcast the other day that was really interesting. You had mentioned that when you're building the homes, you kind of build them in a way that, you set the framework on the back end to where when you do want to sell, if you want to sell to a family or something, you can kind of easily break down a couple walls and it's already built behind. Can you explain that for anyone like, if
yeah,
someone's listening and maybe has a home they want to reno. Just kind of explain that piece of it. I thought that was really interesting.
absolutely. So, like when I'm remodeling or building new homes now, I don't build anything with a master bedroom at the time, but I do frame in a master bedroom entryway. So ultimately, they'll be able to go into that. So all I'm doing is basically zipping out some sheetrock, and then there's a header and everything in there, and I'm just slapping a door in when the time comes, and I'm just removing the other one because for what I do, it makes it a lot better to not have the master bedrooms. It just causes problems. If it's a 5 bedroom home, and let's just say it's only a 2 bathroom home, well, now there's only one common area bathroom for 8 people to use, and 2 people are sharing that main bathroom. So I just alleviate that, but I keep it there so in the future it's really easy for me to just boom, it's a door. It's nothing. It's 2 hours worth of work, and there's now a master bedroom in the house. So
Yeah. Joe, can you think of a specific situation where something like this would have turned like how many deals do you think you missed out on that this could have fit perfectly?
Well, I probably gave away 30 to 40 of them last year alone. But, it's funny that, we're here at this point in time. This is the first time I've ever met Jim, seen him, right? I actually have a unit at the coast down in Newport 13. It was a sober living house before I got a hold of it. I bought it, put like $500,000 in renovation, and I want to turn it back into one because I know I recognized that the needs down there, and I had no clue on how to do that. But I was looking at it specifically because I was thinking like a women's shelter or something like that, right? Because there's just nothing in Oregon that they just don't have that kind of help down there in these little coastal towns. And but to answer your question, like if you want to talk the last 20 years, I mean the number is astonishing. If I'm losing 50 deals last year alone, probably by it, just keep that, multiply that out.
Yeah. And for someone like yourself, obviously, I think most of the people that are running TV probably have the same experience. I mean, there's probably tons of deals that they miss out on, or not even miss out on, they turn down that could, fit this super well. And that's ultimately like why I wanted you to come on so badly, Jim, was like, this is something that really could set people up if they're wholesaling and fix and flipping and they are already seeing these properties coming. It's just such an easy transition, like how you transition to it. Um, what would people or what should people look out for when trying to pick perfect homes for this?
Size is definitely one of them. The number of bedrooms really make a big difference, kind of like any homes. Um, but even beyond that, you do want to be close enough to services. I'm not in Olympia, I'm outside. So the town I'm in is only about 11,000 people. And, I had, when I was running, my peak with it was I had 14 active homes going. I have less homes, but about the same beds now because I've got rid of my little 2 bedroom, 1 baths and things like that were great little rentals at the time, but they don't work great for this. And really, it's just you have to understand what's going on. That people are coming into this, they're going to have to go to AA meetings. They're going to have to go to just different counselors and things that they're going to have to see. So you don't want to go out too rural. Like you can as you progress, and like you can take people that have cars, because about less than half the people that come into my homes have their own transportation. Because normally we're picking people up from really their rock bottom. I don't run luxury Beverly Hills ones where it's 30K a person for a private room and a chef. Ours are pretty bare bones. Like most of my people have an EBT card, so they're getting food from with assistance. They're going and getting a free cell phone. I mean, they're really rebuilding their lives. So you want to be close to stuff like I think you do with a lot of rentals. You want to be by bus lines. You want to be by services and grocery stores.
And one thing that you said was you actually work with the DOC to get people in. And you mentioned it wasn't really like, felons or anything crazy, but, kind of explain that piece of it of working with them to get people in those beds.
There is a staggering amount of people that are having a hard time getting out of prison because they have nowhere to go. And they actually have to have somewhere to go to get out quite often. So we work with them, and the marriage is really nice because when they're coming out, they have to follow the same rules. They still can't do drugs. They still can't do alcohol. They still have meetings that they have to go to, and a probation officer that they deal with. So DOC is a really good mix, and we're getting more and more DOC people. We're actually getting ready to do some full just DOC houses as well. But it's really good. The like here in Washington, DOC will pay up to 6 months for someone. So when they come out, you've got a guaranteed 6 months payment for them. As you progress and you know how to work with these programs, you can get people in. I've got people that are around in 3 years that are still getting assistance in some of my houses. And that means that I've had some people in my houses for over 3 years. So this ultimately also becomes affordable housing because where else do you go get a room with all the utilities included for 850? And addiction is a lifelong struggle. It doesn't just go away like, okay, cool, I went to rehab, don't have to worry about drugs again. I can go hang out in the bar and watch my friends do drugs and it won't be a problem. It's a lifelong battle. And the longer people stay in these types of homes, the more likely they are to not go back.
Hmm. And question for both of you, what's a deal, if you can remember, what's a deal you almost did but didn't? And then on the flip side, what's a deal you almost didn't do and then did, and what made you pull the trigger on that?
I got lots of horror stories. I bought properties at auctions where an hour later we got the tenant burning them down. Like, I mean, I could go on and on. I got equestrian centers where I had to call the SWAT team out because they held my guy at gunpoint. Like, there's all kinds of stuff I wish I didn't have done. Didn't do. We monitor our competitors pretty good, and we obviously get an abundance of leads. I think we're close to 4,000 leads a year, and so we monitor what happens with all those, and to see some of the stuff that we pass up on, they get up and they make a deal work out of it. Like, you're not going to get everything, right? We're here to get our market share. You can't stop us from getting our market share, just like we can't stop our competitor from getting theirs. So, I got hundreds of horror stories of stuff I shouldn't have bought, and I got hundreds of horror stories of good, great stuff that you'd be drooling over. So I can't really answer that question other than very general. Jim, I'll let you take that one.
When I started flipping, I was in Arizona, I was in the Metro Phoenix area. And what I really regret that I didn't do was buy in Mexico. Just there was stuff down there on the beach that was so ridiculously cheap in the Rocky Point area that now I couldn't dream of touching. So that's something I kind of missed and I wish I would have done. And really any waterfront property, I wish I would have been really focusing more on buying waterfront type properties. But that just wasn't what I was doing. And then, regrets, auction house. Absolutely. Auction houses are the main ones I had regrets in. I bought a 98-year-old woman who was abandoned in her house, buried in garbage. She was alive, but I mean, there was garbage stacked up as tall as I am. Everything about that house was horrible. And then the last thing I'll end on with that house was it was infested with pigeons. And we hired a company to come out. And I don't know what I was thinking. I thought they were going to come out with little cages and take these birds away and put them in a Mike Tyson sanctuary on top of a penthouse or something. And they came out with garbage bags and broke their necks. It was mortifying.
Oh, geez. Oh,
Yeah.
what's one thing that you would both say that you guys do that beginner operators would underestimate? And Jim, for you in it would be in the um sober living space, of course, and then obviously Joe in the flipping and wholesaling space. Uh, whichever one of you guys wants to go first, but you know, I feel like a lot of beginners overlook certain things that top operators really like focus on. What's one thing, like the most important thing you would say that they underestimate?
Lead generation. And it sounds so simple because when I talk with people about lead generation for what I do, it is simply calling facilities and building those relationships. Because for me, that is where I get the majority of my guys. They come to me from being in a clinic, going through recovery, and then when it's time for them to get out, here's a list of people to call. And we've got a good reputation. We have nice, clean homes. We take really good care of our people. And it's just the simple things though. It's the making those phone calls, twice a week. It's doing pop buys and dropping off coffee cards. It's sending nice emails and just seeing how people are doing. It's that nonstop lead generation because I've been in it before where any type of lead generation I'm doing, whether it was paid ads or not, I'll run them. I've got overwhelmed with leads. I stop my lead generation. I work through all those leads, and then I've been constantly starting again. And it's just the simple, hey, how's it going? We have 2 open beds. How's your week? You know, and that's kept me full and with a waiting list for the last almost 4 years.
Yeah, with any type of lead generation, we've just found that consistency is what pays off the most. Like he's talking about turning it off, turning it on. I hear that he turned it on and didn't have the sales floor to do it for him, right? The system there in place, and so he had to turn it off. And we've experienced that as we grow because you may only have 2 sales reps and you increase marketing because you want to grow. Next thing you know, you lost a sales rep. Now you got to tone it back or cut it off to catch up, and that's a constant battle. But the biggest thing I think most beginner operators overlook is they don't really start with the end in mind and then reverse engineer it from there back to where they're at and get that plan laid out well enough where that vision is crystal clear. And yes, it's going to change. You don't know what it's going to look like, what that success is going to look like when you're in that stage, and it's going to change 100 times as you go. But you've got to be willing to be modify with the markets and adapt to change. Nothing you do today is going to be the same in any real estate market in 2 quarters from now. It's going to change. And you have to constantly be open-minded to that adaptation.
Yeah. Joe, obviously you do a lot of deals. What exactly does your team look like as far as how many, in what roles? What's the team look like? And then are you all in person, like a hybrid? What's kind of that model?
Yep. So we were over we basically were doing a hybrid version before COVID. When COVID hit, we went just strictly virtual, and then we came back to belly in 2023. the existing team right now is I have 5 inside sales reps, or we call them inside closers, and I have 2 outside closers, or belly to belly. I have 2 transaction coordinators to handle the volume, and I have 1 dispo guy that sells everything. Now he doesn't, and I also have 1 analyst who underwrites everything. That's a key component to our business, because what that did is it takes the liability off me of being there to evaluate every deal. Right, that analyst is about a $70,000 a year salary, plus we incentivize him based off him being right, and how we because it's so speculative, right? Like I might take a house and look at it and be like, that's only 30 grand for construction for me. Well, the guy we're selling it to, it might be 20 grand for him, or it might be 50 for another person. So we have metrics along the way that measures his performance and how good he is or isn't. He's at like a 98% success rate,
That's
which is
awesome.
pretty incredible. Now, granted, we cheated. He was in charge of Zillow's whole division of this, and he worked for him when they were buying houses for like 2 years, and he had an appraisal license, so he kind of knew what he was doing coming into it. We actually stole him from our competitor because he didn't like the work culture there. So that got me out of the seat of doing that all the time a couple years ago. And that's allowed us to kind of grow and start taking on more volume. Now he has somebody underneath him that he's training to hopefully, we can branch out and make it bigger. I also have 1 COO who runs the whole entire operation, and I have 3 VAs that pull data from the county courthouse records, because we're pulling data today and we got mail hitting the street tomorrow. So I'm first one to those leads most of the time.
And then that guy that you're paying the 70,000 a year for, how much time do you think he saves you on a or even just a weekly
Oh,
basis?
it's a full-time job. I mean, we're running, he did 37, he analyzed 3,700 leads last year for us, and do the math, like, this is what he does every day, day in, day out. And he'll put a nice package together. That package is for the inside guy to have conversation. It's also for the belly to belly guy to know where numbers are, so he can present that packet to the homeowner if needed. Like it's a full write-up on it, and risk analysis basically on every deal for us.
Mm. And then what was the first role that you guys hired out in your business?
Lead manager for me way back when. Like if I got to go back 20 years, it was lead management. I got tired of answering the phone.
Jim, what about you? What was the first role that you hired out?
First role I hired out for this was the oh my goodness, I'm blanking on it. The operations manager. And really that was because once again, I do know my weaknesses and building process is my weakness. I can follow it when they hand it to me and say, just enter it into here. But I really needed help with that because it was overwhelming at first without having the right database, trying to track all those beds. We were just using a horrible spreadsheet, and it was clunky and cumbersome. And she really cleaned a lot of that up for me. So
What was one thing that you wish you hired sooner than you did?
I would say anywhere in my businesses, it would be that key person who can help compartmentalize these things and build my database for me. It's just my brain just doesn't work well that way. I'm the end idea guy and get motion going towards that. And I really depend on my team around me to help me with all of all the little moving parts. So
For me, it would have been that analyst. It's such a huge time saver, and he ended up being better than I was. We all have ego in this business, like nobody can do it as good as us. And there's smart people all around you, but what happens if you hire somebody that is smarter and better at something than you are? What does that buy you back?
Mm.
Time. So the analyst for me was the number one. The second thing is a business coach. We hired Sharper Solutions. We've been with them for like 7 years. We meet with them regularly, and they're always bringing a different element to challenge the status quo for us. And that's been a huge part of our success and our growth specifically.
Yeah, love Sharper. They're amazing. Even just going back to the analyst, I'm sure like if you had to look at it and put a number to how much you make extra because you're paying him that 70 grand, I'm sure it pays for itself at least 2 to 3 times just on your time freedom and what you can produce elsewhere when you're not being dragged down by that. That's awesome. I know kind of like what you just said, a lot of investors are scared to hire or think that they do it best. And we had a situation, I think it was about 2 years ago or a year ago, we had a client who it was two partners. They struggle with dispo because they didn't want to hire it out because they didn't think they could do it as well as them, but they didn't have the time to do it. So no one was doing it. And I was like, well, someone is better than nobody. And I think a lot of people in this business do that. They spread themselves so thin because they think they can do it best. When it comes to hiring and lead intake, Joe, what are you seeing as far as first inside? I know you call them inside sales and outside sales, right? So, like, how many leads do you think someone needs to be getting per inside sales or lead manager? And then, how many deals do you expect each outside closer or acquisition guy to be closing per month?
So a couple different things there for us. One, if we bring in a new rep, they're going to come in and they're going to take over some older pipelines. So they're going to instantly walk into some follow-ups that they got to do. But our average guy is coming in, they're taking over about 1,200 leads once they've been there with us for about 3 to 6 months, right? When you bring a new inside rep in, they're going to be horrible until they learn the sales process and the talk tracks. And so, they're going to get a deal about 1 out of every 22 to 24 leads you give them. So you don't want them on your best leads right up front, right? Until they start to blossom as a good sales guy and they know your process. After they're with us for about 12 months, that goes from a 22, 23 to 1 ratio down to about 15, 16. At about a year to a year and a half, depending on how much they invest in themselves time-wise to learn what they're doing, because that's really the thing. We have a whole portal where they can go learn about all kinds of stuff that we teach, right? Every training I've ever done's been recorded and it's in this portal and it's organized for them so they can really dive into what we're doing, why we're doing it. We have hours on creative financing deals and how to wrap stuff and do all this really fancy other crap, right? We can get those guys down to like a 7 to 1, 8 to 1 ratio, 10 to 1 at about 2 year mark. That guy at 7 to 1, he's making about 250 grand a year at that point. Now our closers, the belly to belly guys, all they're doing is they're literally just coming in the morning, they're running 3 to 5 appointments a day. That's their job. We pay for the car, we pay for the gas. They don't have a right to turn an appointment down. If it's on a calendar, they go, they attend, and they got to do their thing while they're in there. They have very few options why they shouldn't be making an offer, but their job is literally go to the appointment, report back to the inside guy for the follow-up, and go to the next appointment. And those guys, our best guy can convert at about a 35% ratio, which is pretty good in the industry. If you're over 20%, that's pretty good. Our lowest guy right now, he's been doing it for almost a year. We moved him from inside to outside, and he had no human skills at all. 22-year-old weightlifter, like, love the guy because he's the epitome of 1% better every day. Like, this is what he does, but he's a slow learner, and he'll even tell you he's horrible at talking to people, right? But he's at the 22 to 24% mark, and then we have another closer who we contract with when we're kind of overloaded. He's coming from a different industry. We actually fly him up to Portland from Arizona to run a week at a time. And he's closing at about the 32% mark. So that's pretty much the ratio for those guys. The guy that's closing at the top, he's been with us for 5 years. He's been running appointments for 3. The other guy's been running appointments. The contractor's been running appointments for probably 7. And the new guy's at 20. So kind of give you the metrics on, like, if you bring a new guy in, you're going to spend the time to train them. 20% is pretty par for the first year or so. Then they're going to start gradually increasing after that.
Awesome. And we only have another couple minutes here, so I kind of want to end on a lighter note. What's one real estate myth that you still believe in, or that you still believe in?
I can tell you one I don't believe in. Real estate is passive. That's bullshit.
Oh. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want some passive income. That's never going to happen. Myth, huh? I don't know, Jim, you got one?
Gosh, I mean, myth makes it sound harder for me, but um, God, one I still kind of believe in though is that you do make your money on the buys of homes. I mean, and now don't get me wrong, like anything, time can get you out of some bad decisions quite often. But like if you're going out and you're trying to flip these homes, and you get into competition with somebody and you overpay for it, you definitely can put yourself in a place you don't want to be. So I would say you make a lot of your money in the buy.
Yeah, I would just, any advice I could give anybody is don't make it emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants a deal. Yeah, you can let the deal raise your pace. We played the auction game for a long time, and we played a lot of games with the guys at the auctions. That's a whole nother beast. We stick guys with stuff that they really didn't know they were bidding on, and we wouldn't see them for 6 months. Then, it'd take them a while to cycle out of it. But there's lots of games that can be played in the industry too. But there's so many niches within it. Like Jim's got a niche. You got rentals. You got wholesaling, you got Airbnb, short-term stuff. Like there's just so many niches in this industry. It's like, how can you not get in and figure out a way to find your way?
Yeah, for sure. Especially, I think a lot of people there's two routes. I mean, obviously a lot of people go into the one trick pony mindset and they focus on something and they get really, really good at it. And there's people that do, fix and flip wholesale, kind of a couple of them and are really good at them. But, even as simple as something like, what Jim's doing, I think it pairs so well with a fix and flipper, more than a wholesaler, but like a fix and flipper, if you're already doing those and you have those deals, to hire one guy or two guys maybe to run that business as a side, even if you gave them, some equity or gave them some, like big incentives to work really hard to where you can still focus on this, but have that running. Even if it's someone that's struggled with sober living in the past, or struggled with addiction or something in the past, that's really passionate about it. I mean, I feel like it's a lot more simple, and you're already doing that and you're already seeing those properties every day. So I definitely think that most of our investors in the program could really utilize that. But we have like 8 more minutes. I think if you guys have any questions for each other that you think everyone else would be interested, more than happy to give you guys a run. If not, would love to give you guys some time back on the day. And yeah, I appreciate you guys, being here and participating.
No, I'm not kidding to you, Jim. I'm going to hit you up for some coaching on that because I got that unit down at the coast, and I'll tell you a quick story until somebody puts a question up real quick. But I bought a house from a seller in Salmonberry out in Otis, Oregon, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that, in the outskirts. The seller says the guy was a tenant, wasn't making payments, and so he sold us the house, or he sold us the house, wanted us to do the eviction. I go out, approach the house. He doesn't want nothing to do with us. He runs our guys off like 2 different times, so I have no options but to evict him. Get him into court. Like 6 months later, he gets in there and he tells this sob story and to the courtroom about, he's been there 18 years. Come to find out, he's been there 18 years and he's built 3/4 of this house by hand. So he's got like 18-year history here. He's put all this love and labor into it, and we're here to kick him out. Right. So we're in the middle of this court thing, and the judge is totally going to side with me, which isn't normally the case. They don't do that in Oregon, right? So they're totally going to side with me because they see I'm just bystander that was sold this one story from the guy that owned the property, had clear title, and here's this tenant that's didn't paper his agreement with that old owner, and so the judge basically calls a halt to the meeting, and she's like, "I'm going to let you two talk," and so she stands up and she walks out of the room. And she comes back in 20 minutes later. Me and this guy start hammering it out together. And I'm actually selling the property back to him on terms, but that's exactly what he did. Is he was a recovering alcoholic, and all he wants to do now is, and Jim might relate to how many people can think this way. He used to have drug addictions and all this stuff, but he's been helping people in this house, in the house that I bought for so long. He's got I go over to visit it. He finally lets me in after the court hearing. He's got like 15 people that's living there that he's helping, like just out of his free will, right? Like he's not getting paid anything. And so I start talking to him, I'm going to sell this place back to him. And I tell him about my Newport house. and he wants to kind of lead some mission like that, to do that kind of thing. And I just thought it was kind of cool that you're here, you do what you do, Jim, and this is kind of like lines up for me, because I'm looking for somebody to kind of help us figure out how to set something like that up. And it just kind of like, just amazing that how it all times out.
It really is. And that's awesome. And he's one of those people that I love to help, because you got to teach him how to run a business too, because he can help so many more people if he actually starts charging and he makes it a business. And because when you have money, you can help a lot more people than you can when you don't. So
Yeah.
that's exciting.
He's really connected, because he does like all these, he tells me about all these different A meetings that he goes to and all these people that he's meeting that are in need. And it's like, there's just this huge market for it down here. And I'm just a real estate guy. Like, I don't know how to find those people and how to set that up. So
Well, that's really cool.
I thought there's got to be a reason you're here today, Jim, and it's beyond my powers.
Absolutely. Mine as well.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for coming. Jim, Joe, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time. Yeah, hope you guys learned a lot. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being vulnerable, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
All right.
That's good. Nice to meet you guys.
All righty.